wish you'd understand. I just wish that God had a better plan. I'm so confused. I need a redo. Inside of me that's begging and begging and pleading. I just wanna feel free. I just wanna feel lovely. I'm surrounded by love that's in pain. Can I wipe your tears away? Please don't hurt for me. I hate that it's for me. It's for me.
Hi, welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast, and thank you to the beautiful Amber K for that awesome introduction. Amber K, check out her episode. She is Warrior number 2. That is her beautiful voice you heard leading me into the podcast. I am the MS Michigan Man 64. My name's Brian. I've had MS for the last 28 years, and I talk about my journey as well as the journey of other chronic disease warriors all over the world, just to try to help people to understand what it's like going through this disease, the mental health part of it, the family part of it, the job part of it. Today, I am sitting down with an MSer I met on TikTok. Becca was diagnosed with her MS back in 2000. She's from the state of New Mexico, and she wanted to come on and talk about her MS journey. Please welcome to the podcast, Becca. How you doing today, Becca?
I'm good. How are you, Brian?
I'm doing okay. So, Becca, you got your diagnosis in 2000, and I know you were 25 years old. I was 27 when I got mine. Can you kind of take us through what point you were in your life and what was going on and what kind of symptoms you were having and what threw up the red flag that something was wrong and you had to go to the doctor?
Sure. I was doing an Avon fundraiser with my mother, and I confided in her that I was numb on my right side from shoulder to toe. And so she suggested that I go to the doctor soon. So I went to the doctor on a Friday, and I told him that I was numb and whatever. And he said, I'm sending you for an MRI. So he sent me for the MRI. He sent me the next day, which I was surprised because it happened so quickly.
Yeah.
He sent me by the following Monday. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
That is amazing that it went that quick for you. I know that there's a lot of people that I talk to and have recorded with that it takes years. I know for me, it took 10 months and I thought that was a forever. But that is really awesome that you got that diagnosis quick. The question that I have is that when you were told that you had multiple sclerosis, did you even understand what you were being told, Becca?
No, because in my life, there's only one man with multiple sclerosis that I knew, and he was using a walker and a wheelchair at times. And so I had no idea what it was. All I knew was that it was debilitating.
Yeah. I know that, I know when I went through that diagnosis, I knew of the actress Annette Funicello. She had been diagnosed with it and, she was in a wheelchair at the time. And my first thoughts were, holy shit, I'm screwed. Because I think that's a lot of the people's attitude when they first get that diagnosis, because they just don't have an understanding about what MS is and that there's levels to it. And, I found out really quick, okay, well, you need to get your exercise and you got to stay mobile and you just got to keep on fighting every day. And I didn't realize that, because I didn't know if I was going to be in a wheelchair, by the time I'm 30. I'm only 27 years old. So I kind of attacked it like, hey, if it's going to take me down, I'm going to go down with a fight. And I went into the weight room. I didn't know if that was the right thing to do, but it was the right thing to do in my mind.
I exercised the whole time before I was diagnosed and after. We would go for walks for our lunch break, walking up steep hills. And so I definitely got my exercise, and I continued to exercise up until I got my first flare. That kind of set me back.
Yeah, I get that, Becca. What happened during that first episode that caused you not being able to get as much exercise as you would have wanted to?
It made me very weak. I was having problems walking. I couldn't hardly walk. It made me weak. And after each flare, it made it worse. It made it more difficult
Yeah.
to continue.
I know you said that one of your biggest symptoms that you suffer with is the fatigue part of the MS. And we had a conversation about that before we recorded. Can you just kind of explain to people that are listening, how fatigue affects you? Like mentally, you want to do things, but your body just don't want to do it.
Mentally, I would have my house cleaned by me. I would have things done by me. And instead, I have to have help. I thank God for my cousin every day because she runs my household. She feeds my son, which is very important. I've lost the ability to even cook, to do minor things.
Yeah, I know. And you talked about your cousin and your family, and I know you have awesome supports. And I kind of wanted to ask you about that. I was going to ask you about that in this part of our interview. Is like when you went through that diagnosis, how did your family understand it? I know you're real close with your mom, and you were close with your dad and your grandfather. And how did they understand that diagnosis when you went through that at 25 years old?
I think they understood it just like I did. They didn't know much about it. Like I said, there was one man in our community, and he was already using a wheelchair and a walker at times. And so we just didn't know.
Yeah.
And so my mom based my MS kind of off that man's ability to do things. Later on, we learned that each individual is different. Not all of us are the same. Yes, we share the same disease, but our experiences are totally different.
Absolutely. I mean, this disease is different for everybody. I know people that it affects their voice and they lose the ability to talk. I did an episode with a guy over in the UK, the Swab, and MS took his ability to talk. He has primary progressive. He's in a wheelchair. And I never even realized that until I started doing this podcast and started meeting people on TikTok and getting to know people with this disease, how it's just such a wide range of how it affects people. Some people it's more vision related, like me. I have a lot of problems with my eyes. For some people, it's their voice. For some people, it's cognitive. There's such a wide range in this disease.
And it can be more than one. I mean, I have cognitive issues. I have problems walking. I mean, It's taken away so much.
Absolutely. I know it. I mean, but we keep on fighting on, Becca. And I know, talking to you in the lives, we've got so many years in on this disease, and we kind of like take people under our wing that are new in this diagnosis to let them know that everything is going to be all right. The sun's going to come up in the morning, and you just got to figure out a way to keep on fighting this disease. So in the process of after your diagnosis, were you still able to work?
I worked up until I had my son. So I was diagnosed in 2000. My son was born in 2008, and I worked all that time. I think the reason I went on disability is because I had a hard pregnancy, for one thing, and for another, after he was born, I just could not get up early in the morning to go work.
Yeah.
It was just too difficult to attend to a baby and to have responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, you're a single mom and you got to figure out what is the best thing to do for you. Somebody going through life with a chronic disease and your baby, and, you made that decision, and, that's an individual choice. And it's a hard choice. And let me ask you, how did the mental part of this diagnosis, being 25 years old and you're dealing with it, and now you have a baby, I mean, how did this disease affect your mental health? Because I know that was something that I ignored early in my disease. And I tell people all the time, take care of your mental health, because I think that's the hardest part of this disease. How has this disease affected you mentally, Becca?
The mental part of MS is it's hard because for me, I was always a very happy-go-lucky person.
Yeah,
And MS with the pains and the confusion, MS affects every single part of you.
I agree with
Um,
I agree with that, Becca. How did you address that? I mean, because it took me 15 years to even address my mental health. I got diagnosed in 97. I didn't actually start getting help until I lost my ability to work in 2015. So you're talking 15, 17 years later. How early in your diagnosis did you actually like start counseling, start medications? Because I think that's an important part of the journey.
I started my MS medications a month after I was diagnosed. So I was diagnosed in November. I started them in December. And as far as the counseling, I would go to counseling every so often because I was in an abusive relationship,
Hmm.
and my mom wanted me to get help. So thanks to my mom, she's the reason I would go to counseling. And I think it's helped so much with being diagnosed with MS because MS has taken so much away from me.
Yeah. I think that's important that you were addressing it early in the diagnosis. I think it sucks for the reasons that you were addressing the mental health so early because you had the abusive relationships. But I just think that's an important part. So I wanted to ask you this, Becca. You've been dealing with this disease for 25 years. I've been doing it for 28. And I've come up with different tools, like the mental part of it. What have you come up with? Just because I mean, you said this is the hardest part, and I agree with you. What are some of the tools that you have come up with, just for the mental side of it, in the 25 years you've been doing this?
You need alone time. You need your own space. You need to sit there and think about things and meditate, I think.
I love that.
And other than that, I think just maybe preoccupying your mind with the other things.
Yeah,
Hopefully, maybe that can get you through the day easier.
I agree with that.
Um,
I agree with that. I think you got to occupy your mind. I know that like when I was able to work, that was what occupied my mind. I got up every day because I had a purpose. And
right.
once I lost that ability to work, I'm like, I had to figure it out. And it took me 2 years. And, it wasn't an easy process. It wasn't like, okay, I lost my job. And then the next day I figured it out. I mean, it was a 2 year process of going, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? You got to figure it out. And I think that's an important part is just finding tools, whether it's art or reading or writing or, like just
Meditating.
meditating. Yeah. I use meditation and visualization a lot. I learned that when I was playing football at the University of Michigan. They were big on meditation and visualization before games. And I kind of like,
Yeah.
I just kind of piggybacked that, after I got done playing, I started using it after I got diagnosed and I use it to this day. I think it's an important part of my tools that I use is just like, just separate myself from everybody, everything, and just being by myself and just thinking and meditating about where I want my life to go, how I want to attack it, and just coming up with a plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because with MS, you definitely need a plan.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this, Becca. When you got your diagnosis, how did they address, like, did you go on a DMT right away, or how did that part of the
I
journey
did.
go for? Okay.
I did. I was diagnosed in November, right before Thanksgiving, and right before Christmas, I started my DMTs.
Okay.
I was on Copaxone at the time.
Okay. That was one of my first ones too. I started on Avonex for a short period of time, and then I did Copaxone, and I actually did really well on it. I lasted 15 years on it, other than the fact that I had to do that shot every day and I had to, rotate the injection sites and all that. I did pretty good on it, but I know other people that didn't do well on it. How did you do on Copaxone?
I didn't do that well because I was a new mother trying to get used to a new baby. I had just left my job, so I'm just trying to figure things out. And your mind also goes with MS too, because I became very forgetful.
Yeah.
So I would forget to take my shot every night.
I get it. I understand that. Yeah. And that's a habit. If you don't have somebody right there to remind you and you're on your own doing that, I mean, I forgot to do my shot every now and then, but I can understand if somebody's struggling more cognitively, how that can be an issue, just staying up on that med. So after the Copaxone, what did they do? Did they change you to an oral to make it easier on you, or how did that go?
They changed me to Avonex.
Okay.
And then for some reason, I would stay on the medication for, up to like 6 months. And then it would stop working and they would have to change my medication again.
Much.
So I've been on Copaxone, Avonex, Rebeth, Gilenya,
Okay.
Ventrada, and now I'm on Kesimpta.
How are you doing with Kesimpta?
I love it.
Oh,
I don't
that's
have a
good.
problem.
That's awesome. And that's an important part of the journey is just figuring out what DMT is good for you. I've been on quite a few of them after I got done with Copaxone. I did that for 15 years. I went to Sabri. I did that one for a few years. Then I failed on that one. I went to Gilenya, the oral, and I did that one for a few years. And they had, insurance kind of screwed me on that one, so I had to do another med change. And my last one was Mavenclad. And, I've been good on that one, but I think that's a part of the journey. You gotta figure it out. This one's working. This one makes me feel okay. I mean, none of them are going to cure you, but you just got to find one that makes you able to get up the next day and live your life.
Yes. Yes. And I think my son was a huge motivator for me because he's my only child. So anything he wanted, I wanted to do with him.
Yeah.
And so MS kind of kept me from doing a lot of stuff I wanted to.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't go to the zoo with him and walk around because my legs were giving out, and so I missed out on some stuff, but I'm so grateful he's here.
Amen. I know that a lot of people go through that guilt. I went through the dad guilt. I'm sure you went through the mom guilt. Not being able to do things that you could have done if you would have been healthy. Like going out and playing basketball or playing catch with my kids or whatever when they were younger. And I know that we all go through that. That's part of the mental part of it. But what I wanted to talk about was, I know that your son's 17 years old now. And talk a little bit more about your family and the supports that they are for you, because I know you have a really close relationship with your son, and he went through his own medical problems. So talk a little bit about your family and your son and how you have taught him about your MS.
My son is a blessing. When he was born, he had to go through heart surgery because one of his valves was bottlenecked. So they had to go in and open it up. And then he also had esophagus surgery because his esophagus was not connected to his stomach.
Wow.
So that was another surgery. So he had 2 major surgeries within like 4 days.
Oh my gosh.
So,
and this is a young mom, already dealing with her own battle. And now you got your child born and he's going through his own medical issues. And that's a stress. And that's part of this, life's still going to go on irregardless of whether or not we have MS or not. But I just don't think that people realize that's like another layer on top of our disease is just dealing with, a child being born. Yeah. Everyday life. I had my mom got diagnosed with cancer in 2001, and she dealt with that for 20 years. And I mean, that was a huge stress to me. I mean, life is going to go on and you got to figure out how you're going to handle that. And you got to sometimes you got to use that as a motivation to keep you fighting this disease.
Yes. And my parents, my mom and dad have been big supporters. My dad would take me to doctor's appointments and for my infusions. And she was awesome. And my mom right now is battling cancer. So I felt like I can't bother her with everyday things anymore because she's dealing with her own.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it, Becca. I totally get it. So let me ask you this, Becca. I know that we're both very active on the TikTok community, and I just love that community, and I know that we use them as supports. Can you kind of let's talk a little bit about how the importance of that community and how we use that to manage our disease?
That community has done so much for me mentally because I'm hearing other people talk about problems that they've had or situations, and I can relate because they're not exactly the same, but they're comparable.
Yeah.
And so I kind of listen and see what they did and, see how they handled it. So I love TikTok.
Yeah, I know we feed off of each other a lot. I mean, some people come in and they're doing really well, and they like tell what the good things that they do to help their disease, whether it's exercise or the mental part of it. And then other people come in and they're down. They're going through an episode, and they're trying to get shit figured out, and we just we take them under our wing a lot of times. And it's just an awesome community because a lot of people don't have that. You get that isolation and you got family members, yeah, they might understand that you have the disease, but they don't understand what it feels like and what we go through every day, the mental part of it, the physical part of it, not being able to get up or not being able to move, and sometimes it's only for a few hours in a day. But I mean, just some people don't get that, but that community on TikTok, they get it. And I just think it's an important tool on the journey.
Yes, I agree.
So let me ask you this, Becca. What do you use as your motivations to keep on fighting this disease every day? I know that like my kids are older. My kids are 23 and 27, and I'm by myself a lot. My wife works a full-time job, and I got a lot of isolation. And I just got to figure out how I'm going to keep myself motivated. What are some of the tools that you use to keep yourself motivated to get up every day?
My son is very important to me. We lost his dad when he was 16 months.
Mm.
And so every day I think is a blessing because it's a new day. We get to do things over. We can treat each other better. We can, make different decisions or whatever. But I think every day is a gift.
Amen. You got to find the positives, and if you're using your family as your motivation, then do it. I used
Yeah.
my kids as motivation when they were younger. I'm like, hey, you got to keep on going for them. You got to show them, that life isn't going to be easy, and you got to keep on fighting the fight. And how are you teaching your 17-year-old, what MS is all about? What are some of the things that you have like taught him along the way? When he was younger, of that mom has MS, but I'm still your mom. What are some of the things that you have done with your son to teach him what MS is all about?
Well, he thought by example, like we would walk over to my mom and dad, and at the time I had drop foot. So I was limping pretty bad. Well, my son would imitate me, not knowing, what he was doing, but he was imitating me.
Hmm.
And I think leading by example is the best way you can go. I
Yeah.
mean, I've taught him morals, I've taught him, everything that requires to be a good adult.
Yeah.
And I try and abide by those rules too,
Yeah. And you're doing as much as you can, and I don't think you should feel like any kind of guilt. You're trying to raise your son the best that you can, under the situation that you've been giving, and I just think that that's an awesome part of what you're all about, Becca.
Yes.
So let me ask you this, Becca. I know, again, we've been doing this for 20 plus years, and there's been a lot of things along my 28 years of doing this disease that have been really, really frustrating to me. I can give you examples like, just the way society treated me, or treats me to this day. I think it was a lot worse when I was younger in this disease because I didn't show the signs of MS a lot. It wasn't really visible. But I think as my disease has progressed, I think there's a little bit more understanding, maybe because I look older and I'm using a cane or a wheelchair. But I know young in my disease, that was like one of the frustrating parts to me, is that people around me just didn't get it.
Yeah, and they wouldn't get it unless you got it.
Right. Right.
It was hard. It was hard going and dealing with normal, regular people every day. and me, I feel fatigue and I'm tired and I'm limping and, all these things. And so
Yeah.
I think that's the frustrating part.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree with you, Becca. What about some of the positives that MS has given for you in your 20 plus years? I know there's got to be some positives. I always say that MS has good, the bad, and the ugly. And, I mean, we can always talk about the ugly. I can talk about the ugly for hours on a podcast. But there's been a lot of positives in my life in my 28 years. What are some of the positive things that you've gotten out of since you've been diagnosed?
You appreciate things more. You appreciate life. You appreciate every day. Like I thank God every day that I can breathe, that I can get up, that I can walk to the living room. The appreciation, I think,
I
is
love
the
that.
most important.
I love that, and I try to think of it like, it can always be worse. MS can take this, so I still can use this, so I better use it to the best of my ability. And I'll give you an example of that, my voice. I mean, I could still talk. I know people that can't talk with this disease. I mean, it'll take your speech, it'll take your hearing, it'll take your sight. So anything that I can still use, I want to use it to the best of my ability is for as long as I can and enjoy it for as long as I can.
Right, right.
Becca, I really want to thank you for coming on with me and sharing your journey today. Is there anything that you want to tell anybody that is out there and listening that might be in a similar situation as you or you were, being a young single mom, 25 years old, and having to figure it out and fight this disease? What would your message be for anybody that is listening to you on how to handle this disease and keep on fighting?
MS will teach you to appreciate life. It also teaches you that you have to take medicine. If that's the decision you made, because with MS it gets progressively worse over time.
Yeah.
And so my suggestion is to listen to doctors and to take the medication that you're prescribed,
Yeah. I totally agree with that, Becca. You gotta do what is best for your body. If the medications are working for you, you got to stay on them. You got to stay up on them.
Yeah.
You got to advocate for yourself. You got to communicate with your doctor, and you got to tell them what's going on. And you got to fight for the next day. Whether it's with your medication or with exercise or with your mental health. I mean, I think that's an important part of it. And I really want to thank you for coming on and joining me today, Becca. You're always welcome on to update on how everything is going. And I just really appreciate everything that you've given to me today.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you.
All right. All right. If you want to follow Becca on TikTok, I'll put her screen name in the description. And if you want to follow me on TikTok, you can find me MS Michigan Man 64. You can also find me on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64, and I'm on Facebook, Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Hit the subscribe button, share it out. We want to be understood. The best way to understand us is to listen to us talk. Until the next episode, this is the MS Michigan Man 64. I am out.